One. Well, Donna, thank you so much for joining us today. This is our series of candidate interviews for the Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance. We have, we're doing all these interviews via Zoom to give every candidate the greatest opportunity to participate for the sheer fact that within the 4-county region and the city of Lynchburg, we have 3 state Senate districts touching on this region, as well as 4 House of Delegates districts. And so obviously knowing the area like you do, there's a lot of travel in between, localities in a number of ways. And so, and some of these Senate districts go actually farther to the east. And also these House of Delegates district go farther to the east towards Richmond. So again, welcome. Barry Butler, Director of Government Relations for the Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance, and Steve, if you will introduce yourself. Why? There you go. Try it again.
Can you hear me now, Donna?
Little bit.
Good. I'm so sorry I'm having all these computer issues. I have a new computer, and for some reason Zoom has been a problem throughout the last week, and I thought we had it fixed. Clearly we do not. But I'm Steve Willis. I'm from Randolph College, Special Assistant to the President, Sue Ott-Rollins, and Secretary of our Board of Trustees. And I get to sit on the committee with Barry, and it's great to meet you and see you. Thank you.
Were you able to hear, could you hear that better, Donna?
Yes, it was better. A little bit of a struggle, but I could make most of it out, enough to know that he works for my undergrad institution.
There you go.
That gives you points, Steve.
Excellent. Okay, and when the committee he was referring to is our Government Relations Committee. So again, welcome, and we're going to go ahead and start. And you got the prepared questions we sent out to every candidate. They were all the same questions, and so we're not going to be able to get through all of them because it's going to be 30 minutes that we're slated for this. But we're going to hit on some important topics. So first 2 questions will go to me. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional experience, and your connection to the district that you're running for?
Oh, yeah. To my knowledge, I think I'm the only candidate who has lived, worked, paid taxes, and voted in every locality that is my district. I've lived in Lynchburg, born in Lynchburg, lived in Campbell County, lived in Bedford County currently now. So I'm pretty intimately acquainted with those organizations. I am a former U.S. Army journalist, which if I had only known that the career fields were going to open for women, I probably would have been a lifer. But I did 1 tour of duty, Vietnam era, spent much of my working career in public relations with VDOT, with the Trade Association for Credit Unions in Virginia. But on the front and the back end, I was a school teacher. I always said that I was going to end up my working life as a school teacher, and that's what I did. I taught at Nelson County High School for the last 8 years. I am a native Lynchburger. I'm a proud graduate of both E.C. Glass and Randolph-Macon for my undergrad, University of Oklahoma for my master's degree in communication and public relations.
Boomer Sooner.
Yes, Boomer Sooner. Yes, I am. That was a wonderful experience as well. Throughout the years here, I've also served on numerous boards of directors for the Mental Health Association, the Women's Resource Center, Venture for Enterprising Women, and others. Currently, apart from being a political busybody, I'm a volunteer with Meals on Wheels, and I also am a volunteer with the Virginia Medical Reserve Corps. Does that
Excellent. That works just fine. And then the next question, thinking about the district, which is, let's see, looking on my board here, but you were running in the 8th State Senate District, which basically covers Lynchburg, Campbell County, and Bedford County, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
all of those localities.
all right. Thinking about the district, if elected, what are going to be your top legislative priorities in Richmond?
Thinking about just my Senate 8 area, my number one legislative priority would be to work on affordable housing, childcare, and healthcare. And the reason for that is if we don't woo and retain young working families in this district, we can't grow. We're going to be static instead of dynamic. We have a situation where more and more housing is rental property. Historically, we know that the middle-class working people have built wealth and equity through the ownership of their homes. And if that is now an opportunity that's winnowing away, what's going to happen to them? We've got healthcare issues and childcare out of the roof. When I first went to work in the 1970s, I was among the first sweep of generations of women who went back to work. And many of us had mamas, aunts, grandmas to pitch in and help. Well, guess what? Two generations later, I don't want to make myself older than I am, but 2 generations later, we now have a situation where the grandma is still in the workforce herself. So the family member keeping someone while mama and daddy work is not so much in the picture anymore. And the cost of childcare is exorbitant. And the other problem is its availability. I do want to give a shout out to the Bedford YMCA for a very innovative program that they came up with multiple sources of funding to try to assist parents with that. And it's working well, but much more is needed. If we don't give some support, some solid services to young working families, we're lost.
Okay,
They'll go
right.
elsewhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, thank you so much for those answers. And the next couple of questions will come from Steve. And if you've reviewed the questions, you have a sense of what he's asking, if there are any sound issues. But Steve, you ready?
Hi, Donna. Thank you for the answers. I'm particularly interested in asking you a little bit about STEM programming and ways that the Commonwealth can improve or enhance STEM. Specifically, and just from a note on Randolph, we are about to embark on renovations in our science building. Martin Science is getting a big renovation. So we're particularly interested in STEM and how Virginia can improve or enhance that programming.
Well, I am too. And as a woman, I am especially interested in that because I know historically, unfortunately, these STEM fields have been the area for men. I would add specifically white men. So, I mean, there've been, you know this, Steve, I suspect you may have authored some of them. There've been studies that show that teachers in a classroom will gravitate toward the male student. Even female teachers will gravitate towards the male students for the answers. My best friend, who's like a sister to me, has her master's degree in engineering from Virginia Tech. And when she goes to her class reunions, she's one of 2, just 2. It was unheard of, especially in her day. She graduated in the 1960s, that a woman would major in engineering. Are you kidding me? I think that for one thing, teachers have to be very sensitive to the fact that we have historically regarded this as male turf, and literally go out of their way to try to encourage those who have been silenced and at the back of the room to respond. And I think also we need to seek out people who are in the STEM fields who don't fit the classic model and have them come speak to our classrooms. I know that my friend Mary Dietrich, she won't mind that I mentioned her by name. She's a proud retiree of BWXT. She would be happy to speak to classrooms and let youngsters know what their career options are. She has worked in some of the most fascinating places and often has been the pioneering woman working where she did. She jokes she was in the nuclear industry. She jokes now that she glows in the dark, but she doesn't. Don't let that scare anybody away. I think that we need more training for teachers. I think we need more of an understanding of what you can do to build a career from these fields. That it's not just, come on in, kids, let's study science. Come on in, kids, let's study math. Show the applicability of that mathematics and of that science and what that can help. And particularly now that this generation faces the existential threat of climate crisis, the things they're going to be doing have real world application in terms of, can we live? Can we survive this? Can we meet this challenge?
That's great. Thank you. I want to also ask you about counseling. What can we do to provide better support for our school counselors and, of course, teachers, both at the K through 12 and college level? Counseling, as I'm sure you know, is huge in all areas of education, particularly with the post-COVID era.
It is, and counselors traditionally have always done the, go to a four-year college and get a liberal arts degree kind of thing. That's what everybody did. That's what the expectation was. That's what you did. And of course, the world evolved, and some guidance counselors evolved as well. Others did not. In general, as a school teacher, I can say this. If others said it, I'd be mad. But generally speaking, school teachers are a generation behind in what we do. And the reason for that was we became school teachers because we liked our teachers and they were functioning a generation behind too. So we know that there's always catch up to do for teachers to be dragged kicking and screaming into their current decade. Our students can always help with that. But I think that coursework should be essential. Training days, meeting with people who are working in the fields. You can't counsel people towards majors and career paths if your own understanding of those career paths are fairly limited. And if you, just as an example of what's happened to us, look back I graduated from StClair in 1970. I feel like a dinosaur sometimes, but that's a long time ago, over 50 years. But in terms of human history, it's just a pinch. In my day, women generally were going to be secretaries, nurses, or teachers. That was it. That was all we had. Look at what we got now. God, we're flying Black Hawk helicopters. We're doing incredibly cool things. And the counselors and teachers, the whole educational system, I think, instead of being so worried about SOLs, the SOLs, help a child identify what he or she loves and show them how to make a career out of it. Do you know what that means there are no more Mondays. Not as we know Mondays or have known Mondays in some of the jobs we've had that weren't so great. That means every Monday you're like, I get to go fly a Black Hawk helicopter again, or whatever it is that you do that you love. So if our whole public education system were devoted to that idea of helping teachers and counselors find out what the child loves, and they all know by the time they're in first, second, third grade, they know. We keep trying to mold them into what we want them to be. But if we could help them identify, what are your skills? What do you love? Let's let you do that. If you want to detail motorcycles, and that's what brings you joy. In fact, I have a former student who's doing that now in Virginia Beach and making more money than I ever have in my whole life. So anyway, I'm rambling. That's enough.
Those are great thoughts, though. Thank you. I want to switch over and ask you about what the Commonwealth can do relative to our veterans and military families. helping them to stay in our state, connecting them to opportunities, training, education, in civilian careers. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, as you know, I am a veteran, Vietnam era veteran, the United States Army. I was a broadcaster and a journalist, and just felt myself proud to have served among the people that I served with. They're just a great bunch. I think generally we're military friendly. I think we can do more. I think we should move forward and eliminate all taxes on military pensions. And one of the biggest concerns, and I was just speaking to a friend who's a retired major in the Marines, simplify. His worry, 1/4 of women, 1/4 of service members today are women. And we have a disproportionate number of those folks in Virginia, just simply because we have a lot of military people here. And my concern right now is the issue about women's reproductive rights relative to those who are serving in the military. And if we're going to continue on with this idea that perhaps if Virginia does something unthinkable this next session and severely restricts or bans abortion rights, people need to stop and realize military women don't get to choose where we are. When I was told to go back to Fort McClellan, where I trained, I cried and said, send me somewhere else. It was hot and there were lots of cockroaches, but I didn't get to choose. I didn't get to choose. I went where they needed me, and I knew that was going to be the deal. And such is true with every woman today. They don't get to choose, hey, I'd rather be in California. If you're needed in Virginia, you're in Virginia. I think we need to look at that. I think we need to look at the delivery of health care to women, not just in Virginia, but across the United States, and particularly women in the military who don't get to choose where they live.
All right. We got to, I don't mean to interrupt. We got a few other questions. We're starting to get squeezed for time, but thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right. I want to just briefly go back to education and workforce and touch on something that's been it's been a challenge, not just for this area, but also the entire Commonwealth. Thinking about K through 12 education and addressing the attraction and retention of public school teachers, what are some things that can be done through the General Assembly to help that out, help localities improve teacher retention and attraction?
Our salaries are not good nationwide, and we have got to boost teachers' salaries, period. And that's the long and short of it. We can do other things. We can give better benefits. We can, I would encourage teachers to be unionized. I have a couple of friends in other states who teach in union situations, and I can't tell you how completely different it is once there's a union. But apart from that, it's just the issue of salaries. Example, Nelson County is known in this area to be pretty well paying and competitive. They have to be because they're just south of Albemarle, which pays its teachers pretty good. Mm-hmm. I got a $1,500 stipend for a master's degree. That's ridiculous. Don't insult what took me, 3 summers and a lot of work in between to earn with a lousy $1,500 a year and a different little thing on my robe sleeve when we graduate. That's not that. If you're going to expect people to be professional, treat them and pay them professionally.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I don't want to give, we're just crunched for time, but I think we definitely hear your passion on childcare. It's definitely a challenge. But I want to skip that. And since we've got about another 10 minutes, I want to get into business climate. And, let's see. I want to talk about, thinking about some ways to streamline the current infrastructure permitting process to support greater efficiency. What are some ways that we can do that while maintaining the existing strong uniform standards?
I was doing some research on that and ran across an article in Forbes magazine that was heralding Virginia, and I'll read that. One example comes from Virginia, a state that has established a new permitting portal where applicants, as well as government employees and members of the public, can track a permit application as it makes its way through the process. What a wonderful thing. You know, I think for a long time, and keep in mind, I worked for VDOT for 8 years, the big government behemoth known as VDOT. I think to try to create a connection where people can see what's going on facilitates everything. It makes people more trusting of the process. It helps them see if something goes off track. So this sounds wonderful, and there needs to be more of this. Things that I can, as a consumer, as a business person, can look and see and contact you if I have a question or concern about something, rather than waiting 2 years down the road when something has gone haywire and maybe I didn't know. So I think that's one of the most vital things for the connection between government and business, government and citizens. We've got ways now through technology to be able to talk and listen and do all those things that were more of a challenge back in the 1990s when I worked for VDOT. We can do it just like that. And we need to really look at all of those systems. I know we've just about beaten focus groups to death, but, you know, bring them back. Listen to people about what are some of the things that they need to be able to see in government.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. And Steve, if you want to take the next couple of questions.
Absolutely. I actually want to skip down to a question, Donna, about how the General Assembly can target tax reform to help better position our state for economic growth and investment. Can you kind of speak to that? I know we're running low on time.
Well, I think there are certain key groups that to reduce or eliminate taxation would help a lot. I think I've already spoken to military. Given that many military people retire here, why not keep them here? The more attractive we can make that, the more likely they are to stay. I think as well, older people, taxes should be redistributed in that regard as well, given that many of us are on fixed incomes. And I think overall, we need to look and realize that taxation is something that needs to be managed in bundles. There are different groups. I mean, different stages of my life, I could have paid more tax than I pay now and not even think about it. But seriously, I think we need to look at life staging, both for individuals and for businesses. We don't want to tax or do anything to burden a young business any more than we would a young family. So I think all those kinds of measures are really important to make sure that we have tax equity across the state. And I don't know how to do this. I mean, in public relations, I should have been able to figure it out, but there's got to be some way to have a little bit of a feel good about taxes. And I know that sounds like Donna, what are you thinking? But I remember when VDOT used to put up signs on work projects, and it would say, your tax dollars at work, you know, I-64, da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's, give us a feel good of what it's being used for. That would help.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have one more question, then I'll pass it back to Barry. I'm interested in barriers that impede our small business growth and entrepreneurship, and how can we do a better job with removing or minimizing those barriers?
I think partnership programs where almost like Big Brother, Big Sister, where we can have more opportunities for people who have formed successful businesses to mentor those who are working in the field. I mean, we know that so many small businesses fail. What is it, 80% in the first year? A lot. Some of that may just come from the nature of not having enough capital to be able to live through the lean times. And so certainly I think we need to look at creative lending programs for those businesses. They need money. and many of them don't have money. And how sad to think that they might close up shop in that first year, where in truth, had they been able to go through year 2, whatever their product or service would have been might have caught hold. So I think that's one of the most unfortunate aspects, is that there's not more financial availability for young businesses that are reaching out.
All right. Thank you so much, Donna. I think we got time for one more. And I think that this, as you have said, you are a product of Randolph-Macon Women's College. And as you know, in this area, we have probably the highest concentration of higher ed institutions in the entire state.
Yes.
And so thinking about Virginia's tuition assistance grant and how that impacts this, your district, as private colleges and universities are economic drivers in the region, how would you support the TAG program going forward?
Well, I think it certainly has to be supported. I think we have a lot of kids going into colleges these days, recognizing that they're going to be inheriting one heck of a burden in their working life. And this all goes back, I hate to divert, but one of the things in the last 4 months that I've been researching and thinking really specifically about what I'll do as a senator, I realize the interconnectivity of so many different things. And let me give you an example. If we keep bringing our young people out of colleges and universities with these astronomical loans to repay, they've got to pay those. You don't even get out of those with bankruptcy. You still pay. They have to have a car, so they're going to have a car payment. So what is it that kind of gets short shrift? It's that mortgage. It's that first-time home. And so we're back again to squeezing the life's blood out of our middle class, because we're not allowing them to create wealth through home ownership. That cannot stand. And we have to do everything we can think of to reduce this horrible burden on young people. I was reading that some colleges and universities tuition programs and so on and so forth have gone up as much as 600% over the last decade. Is that even possible? Maybe it was a misprint. I hope, Steve, you're shaking your head, so I hope I hope I was wrong. But I hope that answers the question. I would do I would do everything possible to see if we can't create a system of having education affordable again.
Well, Donna, thank you so much. And in the last couple of minutes that we have, any closing remarks, closing thoughts?
I do. I spoke earlier to what my most important thing would be for my area, but I want to speak statewide if I could, because I am most concerned about 3 things. One of those is responsible gun ownership. I am a gun owner. I have no problem with the Second Amendment, but we've got K through 12, number 1 killer of children are guns. Now, we've got to do something. We can't just wrap ourselves in the Second Amendment, look the other way. We have to do something. The second thing is women's right to an abortion. We know that when abortion rights are restricted or curtailed, that women die. And that is starting to happen in some states in America already. And it is a heartbreak and an unnecessary deaths are going to incur. And most of all, everything that I've said today, if we don't get climate change right, none of this is going to make any difference. If we don't really buckle down and start looking at greenhouse emissions, alternate energy sources, all of those things, we're going to be in water up to our chin in some places, and in other places, they'll have no water at all. And you think we've got a migratory problem in our southern border now? Wait till sweeps of people start coming around the earth just hoping to find someplace that's temperate enough to live. So those are my issues. I would like to be the kind of senator that people would think of me as forward thinking, and also never afraid to lose my job.
Right, Donna, thank you so much, and thank you for spending time with us today. I know that our members will be more than interested in, your thoughts and your priorities and everything else. So again, thank you so much, and good luck.